Ah, winter, the season of great paradox, the season of cold and the season of warmth, the season of calamity and the season of peace, the season of sorrow and the season of joy. If winter is all these things and more, how shall we define winter literature? First, there are the slow tales, bringing home the comfort of rest. They seduce us into hibernation. They sing us to sleep, and they draw us into the cozy closeness of family and friendship. Away in a manger we tremble. The beginning of the bright, quiet tale of birth, life, death, and resurrection is whispered and then shouted throughout the land. Joy to the world, the Lord has come, and with him has come meaning for all the seasons of life. Winter is about the homecoming of God and man, on earth, in each other, and beyond. Then there are the tales of waiting, of cruel death, of the end of things, of tyranny and desolation. There are the winters ushered in by cruel autumns, and the stories in which time passes into its end, where flowers die, where closed hands wither, where the grave is sealed. Winter literature shelters the darkest and deepest human emotions, but also unseen hope for a better season. In winter, we watch the passing of dark nights into bright mornings, and we await the change that is promised us. We watch eagerly for the coming green, sleeping gently beneath the bed of snow. And as we wait, it arrives. Magic and wonder return, and the piper comes calling down the fresh green hills. Until then, we sit and think. We rest and wait. We inspect ourselves, and we read literature that reveals us as we are in winter, but also how we will be in spring. Good morning, everyone. I'm here this morning with my cup of coffee and my chocolade kruidnoten. It's a Dutch Christmas snack. Essentially, they're essentially chocolate-covered, like little gingerbread cookies. Kruidnootjes, heel lekker. This morning, I'm going to share my list of winter literature that I've compiled in the last few days based on the description that I gave in the intro to this video. Yeah, I did this for autumn as well. I shared my ultimate autumnal reading list, and that was really fun. So here is the winter version of that, and I hope you enjoy. So just like last time, I don't have time to give a description of each one of these books and how they fit into the winter genre as I've defined it. So I'm just going to be kind of listing off the titles that I've compiled in my spreadsheet. Here or there, I might say something or let you know if this is specifically on my reading list for this winter. But yes, unfortunately, I'm not going to be spending a lot of time on each of these, and we're going to be going through this list pretty quickly. But grab yourself a notebook and prepare to jot down any titles that kind of catch your eye. So the first category is British literature, and I have Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I just always picture the snow falling outside Wendy's window as Peter comes to take her and her brothers away. Yeah, and it's a story about the cycles of life and what that looks like, and childhood and wonder and magic, and also sadness and darker human emotions. It's everything. Peter Pan is one of my all-time favorite stories, probably my favorite children's story of all time. Then I have A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I don't need to say much more about that one. Also by Charles Dickens, I have Hard Times, Bleak House, and Little Dorrit, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This one goes for all seasons for sure. There's wonderful spring and autumnal scenes in here, but kind of the climax comes in winter, and there's a great Christmas party in this book, and so I just had to include Far from the Madding Crowd on this list. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, one of my all-time favorite modern reads. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I'm just picturing the icy vistas where Dr. Frankenstein chases his monster literally up into the Arctic. It's crazy. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The Nine Tailors by Dorothy Sayers, a mystery novel, very cold, chilly atmosphere. Letters to Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien. Apparently I say it differently every time. The Adventures of the Blue Carbuncle by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Gaudy Night by Dorothy Sayers. The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. The Place of the Lion by Charles William, a contemporary and a friend of C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry, The Tale of Mrs. Tittlemouse by Beatrix Potter, and The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. Moving on to Russian literature, and I have to admit that most of this list was also on my autumnal reading list because, it's so hard to define Dostoevsky as either one or the other. He's not. He's both. And when I picture Russia, especially some of the darker scenes in Anna Karenina, that's a winter landscape and that a winter emotive atmosphere as well. So I've just thrown all my favorite Russian literature on this winter reading list as well. And right now I'm feeling like they fit more on the winter reading list. So Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, White Nights by Leo Tolstoy, Anna Karenina being one of his thickest and longest books at around 800-900 pages, I believe, and then White Nights being one of his shortest, smallest books, just a short little novella you can read in one sitting, essentially. Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Memoirs from the House of the Dead, Demons, The Idiot, The Brothers Karamazov, Notes from Underground, The Double by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Back to Tolstoy, Childhood, Boyhood, Youth, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, A War and Peace, The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, A Nervous Breakdown by Anton Chekhov, and many of Anton Chekhov's short stories as well, which I have a collection of them, and I meant to start reading them ages ago, but I haven't been, so I need to pick up that collection again and start reading through his short stories. Contemporary fiction. This category is for books that were written in the last 10, 20, 30 years at most, that I didn't necessarily want to categorize as like British or American classics yet. So we have The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, and that is the winteriest book I can think of. Just putting that out there. You must read The Book Thief this winter. The Giver by Lois Lowry, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, Gilead by Marilyn Robinson, Our Souls at Night by Kent Haruf, and Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. Or Neil Gaiman, however you want to say that. I've never read any of Neil Gaiman's work, but I've heard lots of great things about him. And this book is just kind of a mythological retelling of the Norse myths. I would like to read them in their original form as well, the Vinland sagas, but I'm thinking of getting the Neil Gaiman copy of Norse mythology for my husband for Christmas. I just think he'd really enjoy that. Continental European literature, Les Mis by Victor Hugo, The Plague by Albert Camus, The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffmann, and The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'm so sorry about my French pronunciation. Even though I'm a Canadian, I was not taught very good French, ever. Okay, on to American and Canadian literature. I have Rainbow Valley by L.M. Montgomery and Rilla of Ingleside by L.M. Montgomery. These are the two final books, number 7 and number 8, in the Anne of Green Gables series. My husband and I are just finishing them up after reading through all the Anne stories this year. And wow, Rainbow Valley and Rilla of Ingleside especially are stunning and profound works of literature. Rilla of Ingleside is set in the wartime, First World War, where all 3 of Anne's sons go off to war. And we started reading it around Remembrance Day, which was perfect, and it's brought me to tears on multiple occasions. It's all of the things, and it's a great one to read through the transition of fall to winter, I would say. A Christmas Dream and Other Stories by Louisa May Alcott, Christmas in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder, In the Skin of a Lion by Michael Ondaatje, Canadian writer, The View from Castle Rock by Alice Munro, also a Canadian writer, The Long Winter by Laura Ingalls Wilder, The Call of the Wild by Jack London, The Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper. And I started this one with a friend. We were trying to be reading buddies and get together and regularly talk about a book, and The Last of the Mohicans is the one we picked, and I just had a hard time getting through it. And I still haven't gotten through it, but it is a very fitting tale for winter, kind of set in the North American wilderness. Moving on to classic plays, I've got Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, The Bacchae by Euripides. I just finished this one with my class, and wow. No wonder it is kind of considered the ultimate Greek tragedy. I'm not going to spoil any of it, and I honestly don't know even if I would necessarily recommend it. One thing I will say is, having read The Bacchae, I feel like I will understand and get so much more out of Donna Tartt's Secret History. The Secret History in general, you're going to understand it more and get more out of it if you have a background in Greek and Roman literature. You just are. It's about a group of students studying classics, and the references, there's no end to them. But one of like the core scenes in The Secret History, it makes sense to me now, is completely based off of the Bacchae and Dionysian worship and the Bacchic frenzy and those concepts. I'm really excited to reread The Secret History, hopefully this winter, in light of the Bacchae and some of the other Greek and Roman works that I've been reading and teaching to my class. Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, A Winter's Tale by Shakespeare, Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus, Medea by Euripides, Thyestes by Seneca, King Lear by Shakespeare, Twelfth Night by Shakespeare, and Faust Parts 1 and 2 by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. And I did put Faust in my autumn reading list as well, but I think it also really works well for winter. Nonfiction. So these first four, some people might disagree with my putting them into the nonfiction category, but I fully believe that these are nonfiction and true histories. We have the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, written by those apostles respectively. All four of these Gospels tell the story of Jesus' birth and life and death and resurrection, story of Jesus, Son of God, coming to earth, taking on human flesh to live a perfect life and die a horrid death to save mankind from their sins, to restore peace and joy and love and hope and all the things to the world. This is the ultimate story of hope and love and self-sacrifice and God coming among us out of love for us to save us from ourselves. Yeah, no Christmas season is complete or is fully experienced and considered and dwelt upon without reading at least one of the Gospels. Next I have a few philosophy texts. So the Phaedo by Plato, the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Then I have a book that I read in the past, I forget if it was 2 or 3 years ago, that was recommended to me by a university professor called Lost in Thought, The Hidden Pleasures of an Intellectual Life by Zena Hitz. And if you're looking to elevate your intellectual life, figure out how to maintain an intellectual life amidst the busyness of, just all the real responsibilities of life as an adult, this is a great place to start and I highly recommend it. The Spirit of Christmas by G.K. Chesterton. The Book of Job by an unknown author, a very dark, deep and profound book of the Bible. The Vinland Saga, also by unknown author, and as I mentioned earlier, this kind of chronicles the journeys of certain Norsemen into Iceland, Greenland, North America. If you've heard of Eric the Red, if you've heard of Leif Erikson, this is their story, and it also brings in Norse mythology. Yeah, it just brings you right into that Norse Viking world, which I find very exciting. Tremendous Trifles by G.K. Chesterton. The Memoirs of Elie Wiesel. The Fall of the Roman Republic by Plutarch. The Last Days of Socrates by Plato. Down and Out in Paris and London by George Orwell. Oof. That one made me a little squeamish when I read it. Surprised by Joy and Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And finally, classic poetry. I'm really excited about this list. I'm on a poetry kick recently. So we have Beowulf, written by an unknown Anglo-Saxon author. The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot is The Aeneid by Virgil. The Divine Comedy by Dante. The Journey of the Magi by T.S. Eliot. Oh, this is like my ultimate favorite Christmas poem, and I'm going to read it at the end of this video, so stick around for that. Works and Days by Hesiod. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas by Clement Clarke Moore. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. There's a Certain Slant of Light by Emily Dickinson. And then Shakespeare's 73rd, 97th, and 104th sonnets. 73, That Time of Year Thou Mayst in Me Behold. 97, How Like a Winter Hath My Absence Been. 104, To Me, Fair Friend, You Never Can Be Old. And finally, The Ballad of the White Horse by G.K. Chesterton, and A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas. Alright, that is my winter reading list so far. Again, it's always a work in progress. I'm always going to be adding and subtracting from this list as I come across new wintry books or rethink why I put certain books on this list. And if you have any suggestions, titles I can add to this list, please do let me know, or titles that you don't think really belong on this list, you can call me out for that as well. So to end this video, I want to just take a moment to read T.S. Eliot's The Journey of the Magi. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter, and the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel-men cursing and grumbling and running away, and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. Or at the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears saying that this was all folly. Then at dawn we came to a temperate valley, wet, below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky, and an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information, and so we continued, and arriving at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you might say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again, but set down this. Were we led all that way, for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death. So again, just so utterly, profoundly beautiful. So upon seeing Jesus swaddled and hungry and sweet, the Magi question whether they've witnessed birth or death in that Bethlehem manger. In the baby's eyes, birth and death seem to be the same thing, for though the Magi don't yet understand it, Jesus was born to die. Jesus' birth brought on the death of who the Magi once were, the death of their stained, old, desperate selves, their selves of the old dispensation. Jesus' birth led to the death of death, and to the beginning of life for those who saw him and believed, and for those who cannot see him but believe anyhow. The Magi returned to their summer palaces as changed men, though not quite understanding how or why. The silken girls are now aliens, the sherbet and liquor are revealed for what they are, idols snatched in folly. Strangers in their own land, the Magi feel they should be glad of another death, and indeed the death of Jesus is something for us all to be glad of. And if we find joy in that death and find our hope and our peace, then our own death will also be one of joy. It will be a death leading to a better place, an eternity with Jesus himself. Here Eliot brilliantly merges the themes of Christmas and Easter to reveal the true, great, stark truth of it all, that through death comes life. That is my simple interpretation of this poem, and you can find that on my Substack. That's where I was getting this from, because I wrote about it last Christmas season, and this poem has stuck with me for a whole year, and here I am again reflecting on it. So I highly recommend that you give it a read, maybe that you post it somewhere in your house, frame it, share it with people, and just reflect on the true meaning of Christmas and of the birth of Jesus this season. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I would also really appreciate it if you would like this video, if you would comment, and if you would subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out and means a lot. And also if you would support me by buying my book, A Portrait of the Malefactress as a Young Woman, which is on Amazon. I had slid it into this winter reading list under the American and Canadian literature category, but I skipped over it just because I'm not saying that my book has yet deserved to be fit between the classics, but I still would really appreciate it if you would give my book a read and leave me a review and let me know what you think. That would be so appreciated. Yeah, thank you all again so much for watching. Thank you for being here and supporting my channel. And I hope that you got some good ideas from this list and that you will have a very cozy, comfortable Christmas with family and friends, reading good books, celebrating the true joy and the true meaning of the season. And I will see you again in the next video.